Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled AND, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. I'm really very happy to tell you about the next miracle story. I met someone who has read our book, and they told me a story about someone they met who apparently had also read my book. And on page 49 of book number 1, in my book number 1, there's a story of another book that I've read in my life called He and I, that's spelled He and the letter I. So the title of that other book is He and I, and it's also filled with a lot of miracles from an actress during the 1950s in Europe, and she experienced many miracles every day as well, and she had regular conversations with God every day, and she wrote down her conversations, what she said and what God said back to her. So in my book, on page 49, I explained how one night I was inspired by God to go visit him in a church, I guess about 4 or 5 miles away from my home, and it was late at night, about 8 p.m. The churches are normally locked up for the day around 5 p.m. So I asked God if he really wanted me to go, because I'm sure the place was locked up, but I got inspired. Yes, he did want me to come for a visit. And so I did, and it was a miraculous experience. I'll let you read about it on page 49 of our book, or you can go to our website and have the book read to you for free. But the bottom line was that I went to this church late at night. When I got there, it had about 6 doors around it, and I started checking the doors to try to get in, and all the doors were locked. And I got disenchanted, and I thought, well, I'll just go back home. I must have misunderstood the inspiration that I thought God gave me. But as I was going toward my car, I got another inspiration that said, Tony, you didn't check all the doors. And that was true. So I turned around and I went back and said, okay, I'll check all the doors. And sure enough, the absolute last door of the 6 doors, after walking all around the building, the last door was open, and it was a service entrance. It wasn't really a main door. And I had a really deep spiritual experience inside. I can't get into it here. I'm sure it's a long story. But it was a wonderful experience, and I I came to understand God in a whole greater, wonderful way as a friend of each one of us that night, all alone in a dark church. So this person was telling me that apparently this other person has read my book also, and one night they got inspired to go off and do the same thing. Late at night, go to a church. Should have been locked up, but they checked all the doors, and apparently it was the last door or second to the last door. And they went inside and they had a remarkable experience and became a great friend of God in the process. And the bottom line of this story by this person is, the reason they told me about it is that in their case, they wound up becoming a priest, and they have recently been ordained a priest. So I'm delighted to share this story with you. If you get inspired to do something like that, it doesn't have to be the same kind of a thing, but if you're inspired and you feel a calling and a beckoning that God wants you to do something, He wants to talk to you about something, maybe go to your quiet room or go for a walk in the park to talk to Him, or go for a drive in the country, and while you're driving in the beautiful countryside, He wants to talk to you while you're driving. So if you get called away for a discussion with God, by all means, entertain it. Many people have had life-changing experiences in the process. Our next coincidence miracle is also from someone who has read our book and in the process of reading our book, or you can listen to it for free on our website. So let me give you the website again. Just Google our website, which is wcatradio.com/miracles/ one more time, the letter W, then the word cat, C-A-T, then the word radio, so that's wcatradio.com/miracles/. And you can listen to the book being read to you for free, or you can push some buttons and purchase a copy if you want to purchase a copy. And so this person apparently has also read our book, and they tell us the story of one day they were inspired to go to the beach. It was during the summertime, and they had plans to meet some friends there. And but the weather forecast said it was more than a 50% chance of rain. So, obviously the decision would have been, don't go to the beach. It was, apparently it was a long drive, and would have been very disruptive for a lot of people to plan to go and then turn around and come back home. But he prayed for inspiration, which is covered in our book in a bigger way. But all the saints in history would ask God what to do in cases like this. And we've had 10,000 saints. They all asked God what to do. So this person asked God what to do. They got inspired to go to the beach anyway and enjoy the picnic. So they did. They went, and they relate to us that they had a wonderful time. They met a couple of other people and enjoyed new relationships with a couple of other people. And they were inspired at what time to leave. And here's the amazing conclusion. They got to their car, got in the car, started it, and started to drive off, and rain came down in buckets. So the perfect timing, and that's a way we know that God is in our lives, is He inspires us with things, and very often, I would say 70% of the time, He sends us remarkable clues like this. In this person's case, the fact that it started raining in buckets after they got into their car and they were driving away from the beach is clear evidence that when they were inspired by God to go to the beach, that was an inspiration by God, because the perfect timing, they were inspired now to leave. They prayed about what time to leave and got inspired to leave, and then it starts raining, coming down in buckets. So I encourage everybody, keep asking God what to do and do what God tells you, what He inspires you. And even when you misunderstand things, if you've asked God what to do and you misunderstand things, He will make sure that you understand it before it's too late. So just keep talking to God, and as long as you feel that He's really talking to you and inspiring you, and ask Him to show you a clue. Ask Him to show you some sign that you're really hearing Him correctly. Like in this past case, this particular person could have said, well, gee, I'm inspired to go to the beach, but the weather forecast is greater than 50% rain chance. So he could have said to God, please inspire me. How will I know that I'm really hearing you correctly? And God might have inspired him and said, well, if you get a telephone call in the next 20 minutes from someone specific, a certain person that God might mention in your mind, that'd be a clear sign, So 20 minutes later, if the phone rings and it's that person, well, that would be a sign and that would be a clue because you asked God for one. And so that's how you can make sure God is talking to you. When you're worried about whether you're hearing God correctly, just ask God to please, kindly, as a friend, inspire you with some way that you'll know you're hearing him correctly. And you might get that message like, if Susan or Mary calls you in the next 20 minutes, that'll be a sign that you're hearing me correctly. And if the phone rings in 20 minutes, I certainly think that would be a sign because you just got inspired that might happen. And that's how it works, and that's what our book covers. I've been doing this for 50 years, and I know it works, and all I'm trying to do is help everybody I can experience the joy and happiness in asking God what to do and seeing all these coincidence miracles when we do that. I met a man recently, and as I do when I meet new people, I ask them if they've had any miracles in their life that they can share with me. And this man, when I said, do you have any miracles that you've experienced in your life, I had already told him about my book. He'd asked some questions about the miracles in my 2 books. And he said, yeah, I've got a great miracle to tell you about. You're looking at it. He said, I'm a great miracle. I've had an amazing life. He said, I've been in the hospital about 4 times over the last 8 years with serious surgeries and serious complications and near-death experiences. And in my lowest point, I met another man who had a similar life experience that he was going through. And he was a light in a tunnel for me because he gave me a lot of hope. He also had been having a lot of surgeries, and it can get very depressing, especially when you have surgeries that take a long time to recover from. In his case, he'd had surgeries like hip surgery, knee surgery, liver surgery, lung surgery. And he relates that he went through a long process of healing and rehabilitation. But he did meet a man who very much encouraged him, and he met the man at the right time. The man was a man of prayer. It kind of got him also to become a man of prayer. And what he's so excited about telling us is that after all this experience that he's gone through and all that he's been put through, he's been strengthened in faith and hope and trust in God. And he finds that now he's very often in a position where he's encouraging other people, like this man he had met in the past, who was a light in a tunnel for him. And so he sees this as his mission. He prays and he gets inspired by God, who to encourage and what kinds of things to say. And he feels that that's his mission now, and that God uses him from his past experiences to encourage other people to have faith, hope, and trust. I was really impressed by the way he spoke, and he certainly convinced me that he does see this as his life's mission, to encourage other people, and he looks for opportunities to do it. And several of the doctors he's worked with and worked through all of his surgeries know about him, and they, on occasion, will refer people to him to get some encouragement. And it didn't take him a long time. He didn't have to read a lot of books to come to know that he can talk to God and that God talks to him. And that was the most impressive thing to me. He is very convinced that when he asks God questions, which really becomes prayer, when you talk to God, that's praying. And when he asks God questions, he's convinced that God does respond by sending him inspirations and ideas. And that's something we all need to learn how to do. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.